Thank you for checking out Real Talk Personal Finance. Shit's about to get real. Cashflow King with you today. And in today's episode, who's your trusted contact? What's a trusted contact? Well, we'll get into that here in just a few moments. As always, a couple quick announcements before we kick off the show. We certainly appreciate everybody for listening to the Real Talk Personal Finance podcast. So thanks again for your listenership. Want to welcome 3 new countries listening to the show. We are now up to 58 countries at last check. We have additions in Lebanon, Brazil, and Panama. So thank you to those out in those locations for tuning into the Real Talk Personal Finance podcast. So today I want to talk about a trusted contact. I don't believe we've spoken about this on the show before. I believe in different episodes we have covered the importance of having beneficiaries and beneficiary designations. But this is something that, on one hand, is relatively new in the industry in terms of certain firms asking for this. And quite frankly, all firms that you have an investment or retirement account with should be asking for this, or at least providing the opportunity for you to designate a trusted contact or possibly 2 trusted contacts. And we'll get into that here shortly. But something that hasn't really been a recent development are scams that go on out there. And so I came across something recently, and it just made me think about trusted contacts. And this is a personal finance podcast, so I thought it would be helpful, almost like a public service announcement, if you will, to share this information with everybody, because chances are this might not be something that you're aware of. In fact, your financial advisor, if you have one, may not, well, hopefully they are, or otherwise you might need a new one, but they may not even be aware of this. And quite frankly, in our defense, there's so many different things that we cover. I know I cover a lot of different things in meetings with clients that I've tried to tie this into something that we should be talking about pretty much all the time, even if it's just a quick check to make sure that somebody has, for example, beneficiaries that they want. I try to tie the trusted contact part of the conversation into the beneficiary portion of the conversation so that that's kind of one and the same. I don't talk about one without the other, and it's almost trying to make it dummy proof for me, because there's a lot of different components that we might be going over with the client, right? Some people want to talk about statements and investment performance. Some people want to talk about retirement income planning. Some people want to talk about consolidating accounts. There's a whole host of things that we cover with folks, and we want to make sure that we don't forget this. So take it upon yourself as you, the end user, the consumer, if your financial professional is not talking about this with you, or even if you don't have a financial professional but you have money at a particular investment firm, you should be reaching out and inquiring to them about how to designate a trusted contact if you haven't done so already. So, what the fuck is a trusted contact, right? You might be wondering. So, trusted contact is a person that you authorize your financial firm to get in touch with in certain limited circumstances. So primarily this is going to be for things like cognitive decline, right? And also, just as if not more importantly, financial exploitation. So if something fishy is going on and you have a trusted contact on file, normally there's a special department or division within every firm, depending on the size of the firm. I can't speak for everybody, but a lot of times they'll have a designated department that deals with these sorts of issues and reaching out to your trusted contact. It's important to know that, your trusted contact could be really anybody. It could be a family member, your attorney, your accountant, your best friend, whomever you want to list on there. And you want to let them know that they're on there if you decide to list them. Now, this is not the same as a beneficiary, although coincidentally you could happen to have a beneficiary who is also listed as your trusted contact. Think of something like maybe your spouse, for example, right? A trusted contact is also not a power of attorney or anybody that can, just by being listed as a trusted contact alone, that can act on or inquire about your account. So let's say you have an account at XYZ Investment Company, whatever that is, and you designate a trusted contact, but that person is not a beneficiary, that person hasn't signed any special access forms, that person is not a power of attorney, they're only a trusted contact in this case. They cannot call up the firm and ask information about your account. Hey, how much money does the Cashflow King have? They're not going to talk to them. They can't call up the company and try to transact on your account. Hey, I want to roll this money over, or I want to place this trade, or whatever the case might be. That can't happen either, right? Now, if you have somebody listed as a trusted contact who is also a power of attorney or also has signed some sort of an authorization form to be able to transact or inquire about your account, then that's different. But listing somebody as a trusted contact in and of itself does not give them the ability to ask questions about your account, transact in your account, or anything along those lines. So that's important to know. Do you have to list somebody? No, of course you don't. But we typically recommend that you do. I think when this first came out, a lot of firms started asking only their elderly clients because they typically are the ones that are the focus, as we'll talk about in today's episode, of a lot of fraud and scams and things along those lines that are out there. But also, as we'll talk about a little bit later in the episode, they're not the only ones that are getting scammed. And I was actually kind of surprised. We'll go through the report here that I keep alluding to and talk about a few different things. But I was surprised to read and learn that it's not just the elderly people. That's typically the focus, but those aren't the only people that are getting scammed out there, right? So let's see here. Let's get into it. So this is what prompted me kind of to record this episode. So I came across this report, and this is a report from the FBI, right? Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is their 2023 Elder Fraud Report. And they have a certain division called the IC3, which stands for the Internet Crime Complaint Center, right? And I'm going to read you just a quick excerpt from the introduction from the assistant director here of the FBI Criminal Investigative Division. It says, "Dear reader, every day the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3, receives thousands of complaints reporting a wide array of scams, many of them targeting the elderly. In 2023, total losses reported to the IC3 by those over the age of 60 topped $3.4 billion, with a B, billion dollars, almost an 11% increase in reported losses from 2022. There was also a 14% increase in complaints filed with IC3 by elderly victims." And then it goes on to say that a lot of times the ages aren't reported, and only about half of them, of the more than 880,000 complaints they got in 2023, had age-related data, so on and so forth. So in this report, they're kind of just talking about some things and shining a light on different things, and I'm not going to read that whole section for you. The IC3, for anybody that's wondering, it continues on the next page talking about that they were established in May of 2000 to receive complaints crossing the spectrum of cyber matters to include online fraud in its many forms, including intellectual property rights matters, computer intrusions, also known as hacking, economic espionage, theft of trade secrets, online extortion, international money laundering, identity theft, and a growing list of internet-facilitated crimes. As of December 31st, 2023, the IC3 has received over 8 million complaints. So if we take a look just by the numbers here, as we continue down in this report, they have some, highlights, if you will, of 2023. So those over age 60 in 2023, complainants over age 60 was over 101,000 individuals. The losses for last year in 2023 are reportedly totaling, $3.4 billion. Again, as we mentioned from reading the intro, increase of 11% from 2022. The average dollar amount lost was just south of $34,000. And the number of people that lost more than $100,000 in some sort of scheme was almost 6,000 individuals, 5,920. So then they go on and they break it down by age group. And as you would expect, the vast majority, and this is why initially the idea of having a trusted contact to try to avoid and prevent things like this were targeted towards the elderly and the senior citizen folks. But when they break this down by age range, you have over age 60 was the vast majority, over 101,000 complaints over the age of 60. However, if you look at the other brackets, there were over 18,000 complaints and $40.7 million of losses reported for people under the age of 20. Age bracket 20 to 29, there were over 62,000 complaints. Age 30 to 39, over 88,000 complaints. Ages 40 to 49, over 84,000. And ages 50 to 59, over 65, almost 66,000 complaints. And most of those, if you look at the brackets from age 30 to age 59, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, and 50 to 59, each of those, the total losses were anywhere from $1.1 to $1.7 billion for each of those. Folks in their 20s, over $360 million. So it's just kind of crazy to me when you think about that. And that's not really something that you would expect for younger folks. Most people have the attitude, and quite frankly, I was one of them, I'm not going to get scammed. No, I work in the industry. It's not a big deal. And actually, in preparation for this episode, I thought, you know what? I should probably have some trusted contacts on file if I'm going to keep talking about this shit and telling my younger clients that they need to do it, right? So I went on to a few different sites that I have money at and tried to see how easy it was to add a trusted contact. And surprisingly, quite frankly, before recording today's episode, I didn't have any trusted contacts listed. Shame on me, right? But I did. And so of those 3 sites, 2 out of the 3 made it extremely easy to add a trusted contact. And most places will let you put up to 2 trusted contacts on there. So I was able to log in and basically go over to like my profile, and usually there was one of them that said trusted contact, I think was like the second item down, and then the other one, as you get into your profile, you had to dig a little bit deeper, but trusted contact was also there, and you could easily add them online. I later checked their apps afterwards, and unfortunately, you, at least on these 2 sites, could not add trusted contacts strictly on the app. So you may have to get on a computer, laptop, tablet, whatever, access the main website, not just the mobile app, in order to add a trusted contact. And ironically, the place where I have the vast majority of my retirement dollars, I poked around, and I'm on that site all the time, and I poked around and could not find it anywhere. I actually submitted an online ticket asking them how to add a trusted contact and if that was able to be done on the website, and I'm waiting to hear back from them at the time of this recording. So really interesting, but it is a nice exercise if you've never done that or no one's talked to you about that, to consider doing it, right? I'm not 60 plus. That's no secret to anybody here that listens to the show regularly. You know that. However, looking at some of these numbers, it's pretty fucking staggering. And I've even had some personal experiences where, because clients have had trusted contacts on file, we were able to stop some stuff. And I have advisor friends where, we share stories every now and then where they have run into some issues and we're able to stop the perpetrator from getting the funds. So I thought that was interesting, looking at it by age group. And if we continue down the report, they break it down into crime types, and there is a whole host of different types, but some of the most common ones, the number 1 crime type was, with almost 18,000 counts of this, some sort of technical support crime, right? Number 2, a personal data breach. Number 3, and this one happens more than you think, they say confidence or romance, but basically a romance scam. Somebody that is impersonating somebody else that's a scammer online on some dating website, where some elderly person, maybe they're widowed, maybe they're on there, maybe they're lonely, they're looking for love, they build a relationship with this person, and the next thing you know, there's financial exploitation that comes into an account. Speaking of advisor friends, I had a buddy of mine who's an advisor where one of his clients, this actually happened to her. She was in her early 60s, and she was going to wire some guy $50,000, and because she had a trusted contact on file, they were able to stop it. So shit like this really does happen, and there's, like I said, a whole bunch of other ones on here. There's some real estate ones, there's some employment-related ones, government impersonation's pretty big, but the top 3 were tech support, personal data breach, and romance scams. If you looked at those together, that accounts for, 24, 25, 31, almost 32,000 instances in 2023 from those 3 things alone. If we continue down here about the losses and how much money people have lost, it's probably no surprise that the numbers are pretty much commensurate with the number of instances. So for, investment related, because people have a tendency, if you're going to get caught in an investment scheme, which is one of the other ones on that list, you're probably going to invest, a reasonable amount of money. And so this actually tops the list at number 1 for investment-related schemes, where people in 2023 over the age of 60 reportedly lost $1.2 billion. Coming in next was tech support-related schemes at almost $600 million. Romance is on there at just north of $350 million, and the list goes on and on. If you look at the last 3 years, they do a side-by-side table comparison here of the different types of schemes and what that's looked like from 2023, 2022, 2021. You can see that there's different patterns. There's definitely been an uptick in those tech support related schemes. There's some that have remained relatively consistent, like the personal data breach. That one continues to be up there. Investment schemes have definitely risen. So it looks like back in 2021, 2,104 counts of it. In 2022, 4,661, and in 2023, 6,443. So a lot of these numbers, definitely are showing a pattern of ticking up. Some of them are fairly stable, and some of them are decreasing. One of the ones that's shown on here for a decrease is some sort of an advanced fee type of scheme where somebody wants you to pay upfront for something. I think a lot of people maybe have started to catch on to that, and they're not as willing to give their money up right away for something. Let's see. Okay, and then last 3 years comparison. Again, the counts is what I just looked at, the number of instances, and now if we get into the losses again, the list is pretty crazy. And even though it remains one of the top counts or top instances, interestingly, the number of dollars that have been lost to, for example, romance schemes have gone from $432 million in 2021 down to $419 in 2022, down to $357 in 2023. There's been a tick up in, and I don't really know much about this, but there's a line item here for crimes against children. Went from $550 in 2021 to $48,000 in 2022 to almost $1.2 million in 2023. Data breaches also went from 7 to 17 to almost 24 million. It's just crazy to look at some of these numbers. The investment schemes definitely have jumped quite a bit too, 240 million to 990 million to 1.2 billion, and the list goes on and on. They also break down of complaints filed by individuals over the age of 60 by state. So I'll read off the top 10 states here, see if your state, we'll do the top 10 and the bottom 10. I'm not going to read every single one, right? So actually, yeah, let's do 5. We'll do the top 5 states. So number 1, with the highest number of complaints filed by individuals over age 60 in the year 2023 was California. Number 2 was Florida. Number 3 was Texas. Number 4 was Arizona. And number 5 was New York. If we skip down towards the bottom of the list, bringing up the rear, we have North Dakota with some of the fewest, then Vermont, District of Columbia, Wyoming, Rhode Island. So there's some on there that haven't had as many counts. But I'll put a link to this report in the show notes, and you guys can download this. It's just a PDF file. Really interesting, though, just going through this and taking a look. You can see where your state happens to stand. You can see the dollar amount in terms of losses for those states as well. So, for example, California had the highest count of complaints and also had the highest economic loss. Same is true with Florida and then Texas. But then Arizona, in terms of the dollar amount, skipped down a little bit. And then the next highest dollar amount in terms of loss was New York and then Illinois. So there's some different ordering here. But, this shit is real. This shit goes on. And these are all reasons why that we should all consider adding a trusted contact or two to our accounts. And you really want to think this through and be careful. I've come across situations where even in somebody's immediate family, you have to be really sensitive to certain relationship dynamics where, I had a client one time where it was actually one of his sons that tried to clean him out. And because he had trusted contacts, we were able to prevent that from happening. But he was on really good terms with one of them, not really great terms with the other one. And then the other one basically said, hey, Dad had surgery and I paid for it. He wants to pay me back. We need to close his accounts and put it in my bank account. I don't think so, buddy. So he didn't get the money, but that could have been a multi-$100,000 mistake if that client hadn't had a trusted contact on file. And we could go on story after story. This shit happens all the time. But just looking at this report and reading through this, I just thought it was really, really interesting. There's another section on here about common frauds, commonly affecting over 60 they meant to say, I think, over age 60 individuals instead of over 60 individuals. But this, there was a huge uptick, 32% uptick in government impersonation, where somebody calls you up and they pretend that they're from the government and they're asking you for certain pieces of information or something like that. So don't fall for that. There was a 3% uptick in technical and customer support, according to this. Those two alone had a total of almost $770 million of losses and over 21,000 complaints. As we mentioned before, investment schemes also on the rise. Romance schemes also on the rise. And one that we didn't talk about, but it is listed towards the end of the report, is cryptocurrency, right? Or as I like to say, shitcoin, right? There's a fucking little Bitcoin picture here, or whatever the hell. It's a bee that they're trying to make look like the Bitcoin bee. It says in 2023, the IC3 received over 15,000 complaints from individuals over the age of 60 involving the use of cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, or Ripple. Losses to these complaints totaled over $1.1 billion. Kind of crazy, but shit is happening. And I could go on and on. There's an appendix with a bunch of definitions. But I just wanted to record a quick show on this. Like I said, almost like a PSA, public service announcement, just to encourage folks to consider adding a trusted contact to your account. You know, if something fishy's going on, if the firm can't get a hold of you, if you have some sort of cognitive decline, or, you know, most importantly, some sort of, you know, attempted financial exploitation, if you have trusted contacts on file, you are putting an additional layer of defense between you and your money, and you're helping the firm that you have your money with to protect you. If you don't have this information listed, then I don't want to say there's nothing they can do, because they're all going to have safeguards in place, but you make it a lot easier for them to help you if you are willing to help yourself initially by adding a trusted contact in the first place. You know, there's actually rules and regulations regarding if somebody does request funds and there's a certain transaction request on an account. If there's a suspicion that something funny like this is going on, firms are allowed to basically put that on hold for so many days while they're investigating. So there are certain safeguards in place to slow this down, and hopefully they can catch it before the money's out the door. But you also have to, when I say you, I'm talking to myself, because I just fucking did this myself. We have to help ourselves at the same time and make sure that we're helping to protect ourselves when it comes to stuff like this. So take the time, take 5 minutes, check and see if you have a trusted contact. If you're, you know, computer savvy at all and you have an online login to one of the companies or several of the companies that you're using, try to go in there and try to see if you can update that online. If you don't, take the time to send a quick message, or if you don't want to fuck with the computer, pick up the phone, call customer support and say, hey, I heard about this thing called a trusted contact. I would like to add trusted contacts to my account. Can you send me a form? And they should be more than happy and willing to do that. If you get someone that doesn't know what they're talking about, just continue to ask, because the proper term is trusted contact. They might think that you're talking about a power of attorney. Again, different. They might think you're talking about a beneficiary. Again, different. What you want is the ability to designate a trusted contact on your accounts. So hopefully that's helpful. And even if you are really not worried about it, or quite frankly too lazy to do it like I was, but you have somebody in your life, whether that's family, friend of the family, whomever, especially if they're older than you, and you know this kind of hit home with you at all, take the time to let them know that this is available. And that doesn't mean that they necessarily have to list you as their trusted contact, but you're just letting them know that, hey, this is something you should probably look into doing. And financial services firms are supposed to be asking and documenting that they've asked their customers about this and their clients about this anyway. So hopefully that's helpful. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you in the next episode.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.